There's a lot of power and flexibility in the views we've seen in the past. Most of the apps I've created over the years are built on the foundation of what we've just learned. However, generic views are an amazing time saver feature that can speed up the most common tasks. Let's take a look at them. We have this data in our database. What we want is a way to show this data on the home page, sorted by newest first. Each blat will have a timestamp shown that is actually a link to the page that people can share with their friends or bookmark. This is called a master detail view. The master view shows a list of blats, and you can click to see the details of one individual blat. In our app, the master view actually shows the full details, making the detail of the limited use. But in many apps, the detail view shows a lot more information and allows editing and other operations. Let's start by creating a homepage view that lists all of our blats. We do that with an index view. If we go back to our urls.py, we can replace our reference to views.home with views.indexview.asView. Now we go back to our view and remove our home view completely. We're going to replace it with something simpler. We'll need to import the generic view module, and then we also need to import our blat model. Now we're going to create a new class called indexView that inherits from generic.listView. In this class, we'll start out with two properties: a template name, which will be the same as in our home view from before, and a context object name, which we'll set to blatlist. Now we need a method called getQuerySet that does a database query. We need to get blat.objects, which will get a list of our blats, and we want to sort them using order by, and we'll sort them on the field called createdOn. Notice the minus symbol. That means newest first. Then, because if our app gets popular, we don't need to show every blat ever created, we'll limit it to just the first 20. We'll need to adjust our template, but let's start out small. We'll use an if statement to check if blatlist exists, and if so, show something positive, and if not, show something negative. Now when we refresh our browser, we should see it worked. If it didn't work, make sure you have some blats in your database. You can add them using the admin form. Now let's get fancy. Inside the first part of the if, instead of it worked, let's use a for loop. We'll assign each iteration to a variable called blat. Then we'll just do a simple display of the blat. Because we created a string method, it will show the first 50 characters of the blat. Save and refresh the browser. That looks good. It's rough, but we're just getting started, right? Notice that the lines are chopped off at the 50th character. We don't have to rely on the string method. We can access the database properties of each database record separately. Let's do that and display it a little more orderly using the HTML definition list. Before the for loop, open a new DL, and then after the end, close off the DL. Then inside the for loop, we'll add a DT for the definition term, in this case the blat text. Then we'll add a DD where we'll show the date and check if the via field is present. If the via field is present, we'll make it a link. When we view this in our browser, things are coming along nicely. We haven't added any styles and we don't even have valid HTML, but we've got enough to see the fruits of our labor. Notice that some of my blats have a via link and some don't. I deliberately left that off of some so that we could be sure the logic was working. Also note that the blats are showing up newest first. I'm not crazy about the date format, so let's use another built-in feature of Django to make that better. It's the helper module called Humanize. You can make your own filters and custom tags, though I'll let you read the docs on how to do that. But there is one add-on that's actually bundled with Django called Humanize. If we want to use it, we have to go to our installed apps key in settings.py and add it there. The module name is django.contrib.humanize. Then, at the top of our template where we want to use this, we have to include that helper using the load humanize template tag. Now we have several filters available to us. The one we want is natural time. When we add it to our date, it gets converted to something like 25 minutes ago. Let's check it out in our browser. And yes, there it is. We also want to make the time a link. If you click one of the dates, you'll see that it takes you to an error page. Notice the URL includes a number at the end. This is the ID. We've only told Django about URLs that begin with the word admin and the home page, which is no URL. Because there is no rule for this in urls.py, it shows a 404. Again, this is because debug mode is on. If you'd had that off, this would have been a generic 404 error page. If we head back to our urls.py, we can create a new URL pattern. This one is a bit more complicated, so let's explain it. Like before, it has a regex. Notice this regex looks for one or more numbers. The $P means that it's going to capture that information as a variable called pk. Notice that it expects it to end with a /. Then that's it. For URLs that match this, we're going to call a video name detail view. So let's get to our views.py file. This view is simpler because we don't need to do a query. We just tell it what model to use, the context name, and what template to use. The fact that we passed the blat ID in as a variable named pk is important. If we were writing a standard non-generic view, we could use any variable name we like. But the generic view needs a variable called pk. If we create detail.html and put a simple string in there, we should see the 404 page go away. Refresh your browser and sure enough, it's gone. We'll adjust our detail.html now. We set our context variable to blat so that we have the same variable available to us that we had in our for loop in the list view. For the sake of simplicity and consistency, we'll just stick with our definition list. The only difference here is that we don't need to make the data a link, and we'll skip the humanize filter so that we can show a more precise date. If you'd like to customize the date format, you can use the date filter. When you refresh, you see this works. We can click around and view the details of the different blats and have a great time. At this point, you're probably saying to yourself, wow, this is one ugly app. I don't blame you. In the next video, I'll show you how to use template inheritance to make it easy to style the site.